Outside the stadium, former members were demanding answers from Australian church leader Terence O'Brien.
4 people in my family were abused as children. Why are you letting it happen?
So what are you saying?
Why are you letting this happen to children? It's worse than the Catholics.
All they're doing in not joining this is doubling down on the crimes and doubling down on the hurt. And so to them I say, who have not joined, join. Do the decent thing. Do the right thing. Do the honourable thing.
So far, the Jehovah's Witnesses have concentrated on toughing it out.
Why are you doing this to the children? 1,006 perpetrators under your watch. You're the leader.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My goodness.
You know what I like about this time of year?
What's that?
I get to wear Hawaiian shirts.
Hawaiian and flannel.
Yep.
That's about it.
Two of my favorite shirts to wear.
Yeah. My goodness. We've got a lot to cover here. And I want to thank Laura. She is the one that was going after Terence O'Brien. I love those clips.
Classic.
I mean, classic. You know, she was just going right after him. And she's a lot more conservative than I am, because I would have been wanting to punch him in the face.
Well, you know, I think pretty much as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses are today, I think we pretty much all feel the same way, because we understand exactly what, you know, Watchtower is doing. They're actually showing that they care more about their money than they do the reproach brought on Jehovah. You see, the way the organization works, if you're not familiar with it, they indoctrinate all of its members with the thing they call about not bringing reproach on Jehovah's name or reproach on the organization. Because let's all face it, the Watchtower Bible Craft Society, everybody looks at them through a looking glass. Because they're the ones knocking on the door Saturday morning, very, you know, neatly dressed, very neatly trimmed hair.
They're in the public.
They're in the public. So they have this image, this facade that they want to try to maintain, but they put all of the responsibility on its members. And unfortunately, when a member doesn't live up to Watchtower's rules, then that member is subjugated to a judicial hearing. Now, whether that judicial hearing involves child abuse, whether it involves adultery, fornication, or even if somebody sees their brother come out of a bar at 1 o'clock in the morning with somebody other than their wife. And before I go any further and finish this, Kim has some things she wants to say, so you're going to have to stay tuned so that I can finish what I started.
Now, many of us have seen the reports coming out of Australia. Oh my goodness. The journalists, the politicians, they are just outraged. And, you know, it's really sad that the Jehovah's Witnesses don't even know what's going on. And I know ones in this country, even our moms, they wouldn't want to hear what is going on in Australia. And as many of you know, the deadline ended yesterday for those to join the Redress scheme. Now, I'm going to try to put as many of the links down below, many of them on YouTube. You know, you just have to, Project TV did another 4-minute segment, but 6 organizations have not signed up for the redress scheme. Out of all of those, only 1 is a religious organization. The others are like sports, you know, organizations and, you know, clubs or something like that, swim clubs. But the only religious organization not to sign up is Watchtower Bible Tract Society. This is becoming a PR nightmare for Watchtower.
Look at the reproach they're bringing on the organization right now.
And like we've mentioned before, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. Because if they do sign up, it's an admission of guilt and responsibility. And they're going to have to fork over some money, pay up. And if they don't, many of the reports, the politicians are saying that they're going to take their government funding and their tax exempt status. I would love to see that, because then let them pay taxes on all the property they have in Australia, including the $10 million media center they're building there right now.
But it just goes to prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that your leaders care more. They care more about the money than they do bringing reproach on Jehovah's organization. So that should tell each and every one of you Jehovah's Witnesses out there, there is no living God behind this organization. It's all men and their contrived bullshit. Because if there were a living God, a living Christ behind this organization, it would have never gone this far to begin with. Because the whole assumption is that this is Jehovah's organization. See, the only reason why this organization is being used is because Jesus is the head of the congregation. See, Jehovah is allowing it. This is Jehovah's arrangement. And yet Jehovah's arrangement has allowed child abuse for decades. And it appears that the living spirit behind the organization is now going to allow them to hightail it. Come on, Jehovah's Witnesses, you need to snap out of the fog that encompasses your head and look at the hard evidence that is in front of you. And in fact, I'm going to show you guys a scripture here in just a little bit that you should really take to heart.
Well, why don't we cover that before we get into the elders' letters?
Okay.
Save those for the end because it's interesting.
Jehovah's Witnesses, go and get your Bibles. Go to 1 Corinthians. Now, we all know that Watchtower loves to play the principle game, even though you won't find it in Scripture word for word, but there's a principle behind it.
The two-witness rule.
Yeah, there's a principle behind it. But there's another principle that you can find at 1 Corinthians 6, verse 7. And I'm not going to tell you what the principle is, Jehovah's Witnesses. You should almost be smart enough to figure it out. Really then, it means altogether a defeat for you that you are having lawsuits with one another. Doesn't say with your brothers, but it's implied. It's implied, but there's a principle there. Why do you not rather let yourselves be wronged? Why do you not rather let yourselves be defrauded? To the contrary, you wrong and defraud, and your brothers at that. See, at the time all of this child abuse and pedophilia happens, at that moment, that person is your brother. Then you have to go through this judicial hearing, kick them out, take away their social structure, and then guess what? You no longer feel any obligation. You are a nest of defrauding people. That's exactly what you are. And you don't even hold to the New World translation of the Holy Scriptures, do you, Watchtower? You don't even hold to it because you will not let yourself be wronged, and you will not let yourself be defrauded because your heart loves money more than it does righteousness.
Well, what made me think of that scripture this morning when I was sitting here drinking my coffee is, wouldn't it be better to admit, well, maybe we have a child abuse problem and be wronged, than to look like complete, heartless cult to the world? I mean, like that scripture says, isn't it better, to
Right.
go through that than, but see, they won't, because it's like, well, we can't admit guilt, but if we don't join, at least we will have our money.
Yeah.
At
So,
least we will have our money with us.
so the very scriptures that you cram down everyone else's throat, how do you like them being crammed back down yours?
Well, in their new September 2020 Study Watchtower, article number 40, it talks about apostates on page 29. And, you Jehovah's Witnesses wouldn't want to listen to apostates and these false brothers making these statements, because it's going to make you lose faith in the organization and Jehovah. So they're calling us liars. I mean, if I had the time and money and energy and wanted to, I would actually go after them and sue them for libel and slander for the things they have said about apostates, because these are not lies.
These are not lies.
This is right from, sources, court documents, tax forms, government investigations. It's about as reliable as you can get. And then when you have the testimony of these, abuse survivors themselves, and it's like, my goodness. So, I mean, it's just... So, you want to know how they're going to combat this? They're coming out with a special part on your midweek meeting here. I believe one is the last weekend in July, and then the other one is the first midweek meeting in August. And these are the outlines that we just got leaked. Thank you, Atlantis and Petra. Note to the speaker: instill trust in Jehovah's helping hand in times of distress. Highlight the ways Jehovah demonstrates that he will never abandon his people. Make practical application according to local circumstances.
See, in the name of this outline is Jehovah will never abandon us. Sorry, Watchtower, he's already abandoned you because he was never there. There again, how could he even abandon you when he was never there to begin with?
How does Jehovah sustain us during these distressing times? Jehovah is our provider. Jehovah gives us the peace of the Christ. And number 3, Jehovah uses others to help us. You mean like the UN?
Yeah.
And, they're on jw.org saying, oh, this brother that is in Russia prison, he's going to be released early. Well, now, I believe it was the Russian prosecutor, is appealing that. So he's going to have to stay in jail a little bit longer. Jehovah is our provider. And then they talk about the widow that was down to her last food. Perhaps she had been rationing her food for some time and only a small amount remained. And then here comes Elijah wanting the last of her food. And did she say, no, that's our last meal? No, she gave it to him.
So that outline talks about the widow. Really, Watchtower? Really? When my dad passed away, guess what my mother's cry to me was? The elders haven't been here to encourage me. I feel like I've been abandoned. What a crock of crap you people continue to push. I mean, in light of everything that's happening right now, you're still pushing the crap?
Well, yeah.
Good Lord.
Just like the widow, we might be afraid that our necessary provisions are running out. At first, Elijah's request could have sounded strange. Give away our last meal? You must be joking. Some in her position might have thought, but that was not this widow's reaction. Despite her limited knowledge of Jehovah, she believed Elijah and did what he asked of her. What a momentous test of faith that was. Now this I thought was interesting, and that's why I brought this up, because usually I don't cover outlines, but right after they talk about the widow, the application, how to apply it, the principles involved.
Yeah.
In this period of human turmoil, we should act in harmony with Jehovah's direction, regardless of how impractical and strange it seems.
Be ready to obey, even though it's not logical from a human standpoint.
Yeah, and then they go, for example, the announcement to all congregations mentioned that when the authorities remove the restrictions, we need to be careful in going back. Now it's interesting because we had been hearing that they were going to go back to the Kingdom Halls, like not until September to December, thereabouts. Well, now we're hearing that the elders are telling the JWs that it probably won't be till January or later until they go back to the Kingdom Hall. Interesting. Then they go into, the social distancing and following all those rules, and we should be prepared to remain in our homes for an extended period of time. So what do they know that they're not telling the rest of the JWs?
Here's part of the issue for Jehovah's Witnesses. You go back on your door preaching right now, especially in Australia, and you Jehovah's Witnesses are going to hear it from John Q. Public. I can guarantee you that right now, because John Q. Public is very well in tune to who and what Watchtower is all about and what they're doing right now. Absolutely nothing to help and support the victims of child sexual abuse. Throw them out! Throw them out of the congregation! We wouldn't want to bring reproach! Don't let that child abuse victim talk to anybody in the congregation, because they're going to upset the nest.
But he testified to the commission. He swore on a Bible to tell the truth and that they don't shun.
It doesn't matter what they do. They're all a bunch of liars, for crying out loud. It doesn't matter. Jeez.
So anyway, the midweek meeting for those 2 weeks are going to be like oy vey.
Maybe what I should do is take this outline and work it out myself. And just point out how wrong Watchtower is and how out of line they are with their own Bible.
We can expect that as the end draws closer, world conditions will get worse. However, we are convinced that the everlasting arms of Jehovah will continue to be beneath us.
Okay, stop right there. Hold the phone. I want you Jehovah's Witnesses to stop and think for 1 minute. Think. You were given literature a long time ago. The Reasoning book, the Live Forever book, and it's been planted throughout all your literature, that the generation of 1914 will not pass away until all those things occurred, including the Great Tribulation. Now see, Watchtower has to kind of like re-identify what that generation is. See, now it's overlapping, because see, that generation is dead and gone. It doesn't exist. And that glorious paradise earth didn't arrive as expected. So now your 8 governing idiots have to do this little overlapping crap. But you guys missed something very, very important about that 1914, 1916, 1918 era. Remember what Watchtower taught us. They taught us that Jesus Christ inspected all the religions, and they found only the Jehovah's Witnesses were doing things according to what Jehovah and Jesus were looking for, right? Okay, it was at that time when the faithful and discreet slave, because remember Jeffrey Jackson said, well, Jesus said in the time of the end there would be an appointment of the faithful and discreet slave class. No, Jesus did not say that. Jesus didn't say that. He said, who really is? And he would be doing the work or watching, however that nonsense goes these days, that, that they would be looking over the master's belongings. But Jesus also said in that statement, but if that slave ever turns and starts beating the flock because the master's delaying, that's exactly what's happened. But you all forget that if that generation is dead and gone, so is the appointment of the faithful and discreet slave. See, now that's why that knucklehead Tony the Morris the Turd had to come out and say, we're waiting for our second appointment when we're going to be appointed over all the first appointment failed because we're still in this system. Think it through, Jehovah's Witnesses, and go back and read those words of Jesus, because he said, but if that slave ever turns and starts beating because the master has delayed, seems like he's delayed, go back and read it and think it through and comprehend that this slave, it was never righteous, it was always wicked.
Yeah. Now, a couple of things to cover here. We got the July announcements. That was quick, huh? But they found the mold and they've, plugged the leaks. Okay. Now they're talking about apps. And I'm going to cover the apps here in just a minute because I found out some things about their apps. Recognizing the dangers. Some have formed message groups of hundreds or thousands to organize large social gatherings or for other reasons. Now, because it's in the Elder's letter, that tells me that many have done it. Not just one or two, but many are doing this. Yeah. With such large groups, it is difficult to determine the spiritual standing of those in the group. Now you're going to hear some paranoia. This is some severe paranoia. It reminds me of Jim Jones. Oh, we have to flee the country down to Guyana because the government is after us. The government is after all of us. Right?
Is this in response because of the PMOs and the ZMOs now?
Oh, I'm sure, because it gets better. Disfellowship persons and apostates may even gain or maintain access. You betcha. The originator of a message group should manage access to the group and personally know the individuals who are part of the group.
Isn't it nice that we dwell in Watchtower's mind?
Yeah, do you think we're that paranoid about Jehovah's Witnesses being in our groups? No.
No.
Because we know they're going to learn something. Some have used messaging apps to offer employment, products, or services to fellow believers. You knew that was coming.
Oh, yeah.
Christians should not target theocratic contacts to advance business interests.
How is selling Kingdom Halls and Kingdom Hall property not advancing business? What did they say? Business what? Business
Interest.
Business interest.
Or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. Isn't that the pot calling the kettle black?
I know. Messaging apps can be useful. Make wise use of messaging apps. Messaging apps, and they have a list of them. Many of Jehovah's people use messaging apps to strengthen the bonds of love with their Christian brothers and sisters. Circuit overseers, elders, and publishers often use message groups to convey helpful information, to encourage one another, or simply to keep in touch. Now, I got an email from a Zemo, and it said, more news from Oz. This is Australia. Several months ago, some congregations have invited Jehovah's Witnesses to download an app and put some personal details in, then get a password to log in and enter field service reports and get meeting schedules and assignments, etc. Not mandatory yet, but we're constantly reminded, if possible, to get the app as it saves the elders a lot of time. Of course, the majority of the JWs downloaded the app with no thought of who or where this information is going. This is not an app created by Watchtower. Who is looking at your theocratic profile? Is it part of the organization, and does the info go to the jw.org hub? Feel free to use this info in a video. Okay, and then he says, I'm quite disturbed by this, though not surprised. So I did some digging, and what I found is the one they're using there in Australia. The app is called Deckhand. D-E-C-K-H-A-N-D. You know, like on a ship, a deckhand. Link below gives an outline on the purpose of it and how it works. The next link is the About tab on the site. Notice the cartoon of they look like JWs. No beards, but they are wearing tight pants. Looking forward to Mikey's comment on that one.
Yeah.
So you can go to the deckhand.org.au. The address linked to the site is just a residential address several hours north of Sydney. And they have the property link to the address. Gotta love our viewers in the Zemos.
Exactly.
The website refers to another entity called Region Build, which is linked to a company called Bold Tech. BOLDTECH. boldtech.net.au, Region Build Private Cloud. And the owner of the website is, you guessed it, a JW. Now, when you go to this person's Facebook, it's not private. It's a public profile on Facebook that, you know, I didn't even need a Facebook account to look at it. And best life ever. But look at what it says on his profile. He started working for JW.org. So, talk about nepotism. You know, the brothers and, you know, they all get involved in this cloud and the apps and all of this. But how many of the JWs know what they're actually putting information into their phone with? Mm-hmm. Now, Adam, the team with the WPT, the Watchtower Property Tracker, you know, since he's a data analyst, he said that some of these apps can actually use geolocation on your phone. So if you upload them, they will know exactly who you are and where you are.
Jehovah's watching you.
Yeah. Big brother in the sky is watching you. But anyway, like you said, is this Geek JW just trying to be helpful, or are they gathering information for Watchtower? Because, I mean, it's obvious Watchtower is getting really paranoid.
Or they trying to track down who the PMOs might be and who the ZMOs might be. And what better way to do it? Oh, look at the blessing from Jehovah's organization. Look at how your elders don't have to work every month to, you know, call you brothers that are, you know, lazy slobs for not turning in your time on time. Yeah, they're going to sell it as a good thing for the elders, but then you don't know whether you're being tracked down through these apps.
So this is just a warning to you Zemos. You know, be careful what apps you're, you know, downloading and using, because, yeah. Especially for those of you leaking information to the activists, you know. So, and it's funny because the last thing it says we should cultivate friendship only with those who love and fear Jehovah. You know, funny story, I just remembered, before I go on with the announcements and reminders, well, actually, it's basically that all circuit assemblies during September to November 2020, all those circuit assemblies have been canceled.
You mean Jehovah can't protect them while they're going to be feeding at Jehovah's banquet? You know, Jehovah can't protect you, so you have to cancel your circuit assemblies? But Jehovah's more powerful than the COVID disease.
So I have a funny story. This one called me Satan's little helper. But on eBay, I've been selling some of my Kingdom Ministries, some of my older booklets and Kingdom Ministries and brochures and stuff that I have a lot of extras of. So I've been selling these on eBay. Well, a JW in Britain has been buying a lot of these older books, and I'm thinking, okay, JWs don't care about the history. It's old light. Why would they want to have all of these old literature and stuff like that. So, I mean, my goodness, he's been buying up every older KM and booklet that I have. And, of course I didn't tell him who I was, but, I had asked him at first, are you a Jehovah's Witness? And he says, yes, I am. Have been, I forget how many years. And he just loves the Watchtower history. So, Bad Kim, Satan's little helper, in the last batch, it was a mixed batch of KMs, from, one issue from this year and stuff like that. So what I did is in my stack, I had an extra insert of the 1968 KM. You know the one where there's only 90 months left until the end of 6,000 years. So time is running out for us. So I had an extra insert of that. I highlighted that part and I opened it, and I put it right between the KMs and his invoice. So when he takes and separates the two and he sees that insert.
We only have 90 more months.
Yeah. But the thing is if someone is interested in their history, and buying up all of this old literature, then they need to see some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It was printed.
Yeah.
That there was only 90 months left until the end of the 6,000 years, and our time was running out.
And what a wonderful time for Jehovah to kill all the wicked.
I know it.
Yeah.
But Mike has a couple of stories here, too.
Okay, I want to get back to the earlier thought regarding the two-witness rule and how Watchtower will twist it. And the two experiences that Kim and I are going to relate are experiences that we have personally witnessed ourselves. Why? Because we were the tattletales.
We were good pillars of the congregation.
We got to make sure there's no reproach brought on Jehovah's organization or the Cottonwood congregation. We wouldn't want that kind of reproach, now would we? Cottonwood. Oh, no. So anyhow, one night, now Kim and I, when we had our business, cleaning business, yes, we were window washers and janitors too. Go ahead, let's hear all the laughing, because I laugh at myself. But anyhow, I was coming back from a job one night, and I happened to see a ministerial servant coming out of a bar at what I would consider an ungodly hour, especially since, Sunday morning was the very next morning. This was a Saturday night. So I actually talked to an elder about that. And you know what he said to me? He says, well, was there anybody there that, was there anybody else with you? Well, no, because I was coming back from, a cleaning job. He says, well, I'll go talk to brother so-and-so, but there's not much we can do because there wasn't two witnesses. But the thing is several weeks earlier, another ministerial servant had seen him coming out of the same bar only like at 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so this ministerial servant was making a habit.
This was a sports bar, too.
Yeah, it was a sports bar. Now, I kind of get the whole thing. I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But what I'm focusing at is how Watchtower will twist, because this particular person, he had money. He could do favors, wink, wink. And to make a long story short, I was told that even though two of the ministerial servants, myself and the other one, saw the third ministerial servant coming out this bar late at night, because both of us did not see him at the exact same time, it could be a case of mistaken identity. Do you see how they will twist? When you have something concrete, even if you have two different occasions when you see somebody, two different people doing, or two different people witnessing on two different occasions, if that person's prominent in the congregation, they're still not going to do nothing, because it could be a case of mistaken identity. So at that point, you know what my thought process was? I don't even give a rat's ass if I see an elder coming out of a hotel with a whore. I don't care no more. because they're not going to do nothing, because it could be a case of mistaken identity.
Well, the point we're trying to make is this is basically the same thing they use when someone reports abuse in the congregation.
That's right.
Because we know these perpetrators are not going to have a witness when they're abusing a child. And, you know, for example, there was an elder in our Wisconsin congregation that his wife knew he was having an affair. She found love letters and cards from this woman to her husband. The idiot actually kept him in a box in his garage. How stupid is that? And she found him. And nobody believed her. Nobody believed her. Even though, you know, her and another sister had seen him with this other woman. Elders didn't want to believe her. And so, since I was kind of related to her in a roundabout way, we're like fourth or fifth cousins, she asked me, she says, can you please go with me? And she says, they're not listening to me even with two witnesses. So she says, I'm going to borrow my dad's video camera. And she borrowed her dad's video camera. And she was so upset and nervous and shaking that she asked me to film it. And so we waited in the cold rain, and sure enough, here he comes, and as he gets out of his car, he throws a cigarette to the ground, and then he proceeded to get friendly with his girlfriend against the wife's grandparents' tombstones. I kid you not. We seen this going on right in the tombstones. But there again, I had the video, invited the elders over to my house. I showed them the video. They wanted the original. I said,
no way. Nope.
I've had too many experiences of evidence disappearing.
Yeah, because the whole thing is that the elder body is a good old boys club. If you're in an older congregation where all of the elders were all, you know, childhood friends, they all went to school together, you are never going to be able to act in a righteous way. You are never going to be able to, you know, show some of the reproach that's being brought on the congregation, because they all cover for one another. And child abuse is the same thing. They're all covering for one another.
And, you know, I know Jehovah's Witnesses will say, oh, well, these are just isolated cases. No, we could go on for hours. We could go on for hours talking about this. But just the fact that those elders wanted that original videotape. And I said no. And they were trying to pressure me. And I said, I'm going to hang on to it. And if you guys don't do anything, I'm going to take it to the circuit overseer. And if he doesn't do anything, I'm going to take it to the district overseer. Because something needs to be done. This elder is having an affair. And now we know he's smoking. No one even knew he was smoking. And speaking of smoking, quick story here, there was, he was a regular pioneer, and I don't know if he was a regular pioneer at that time in a ministerial servant, but he had been, you know, in the past. But this brother, he had pulled out in front of me, and when he did that, I seen who it was, because my headlight shined right in his face, and he turned and looked at me. And so I knew who it was, but it was dark. It was dark at night, and I was following kind of close, just for the fact that he pulled out in front of me. It's like, well, I wonder if he's been drinking. So I'm following behind him kind of close. All of a sudden, I see like a match light up, and then the little red light, like at the end of a cigarette. And sure enough, yep, he put his window down, and there was smoke coming out. So I followed him for several miles. And sure enough, he was smoking. So being the good JW tattletale, ran to the elders, and they told me, okay, well, we'll talk to him.
We'll check into it.
We'll check into it. Yeah, we've actually had someone else say that they saw him smoking.
Leave it in Jehovah's hands.
You know, so I was the second person to see him smoking. Nothing was done, because we did not see the same incident, and it was at night. I could have been mistaken.
Mistaken
Well,
identity.
first of all, he lived right down the street from us. I knew his vehicle, and when he pulled out in front of me, you know, my headlights was right there on the driver's side, so I had seen his face. And then someone else seen him smoking. So just the point is that this two witness rule, they only use it when it's to their advantage.
Their convenience.
Now, if it was the other way around, then they would
Well-
be using it to protect the abuse victims.
Well, I'll give you another good example for being the other way around. When I was a ministerial servant, remember what they did to me? They took my privileges away on hearsay. On hearsay, there wasn't any frickin' witnesses. It was hearsay.
Dear, we were disfellowshipped on hearsay.
Well, there you go. Yeah, there you go. See, guys, this whole two-witness rule is bullshit. It's literal bullshit.
Well, right before they formed our judicial committee, yeah, they tried to talk to Mike, but he hung up on him because they had come and, interrogated me without him being home, so he hung up on him. But they never did even talk to him.
Never talked to
So
me.
he was disfellowshipped and they never even talked to him. So Watchtower, how do you like us now?
See, the reproach that your organization is incurring is due to your own negligence. It's due because you love money more than you love righteousness.
Yeah.
See, mammon, money is your god. And if you're, Tony Morris, alcohol is his god.
Yeah.
When will you Jehovah's Witnesses just finally give it up?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, I'm going to put the link down below. If I can put all of these news reports into like a WeTransfer, I will put the link down below. There's several that I have been grabbing the past couple of days, and the politicians are upset, and they're threatening, they're wanting to take all government funding away from Watchtower and these other organizations, and get rid of their tax-exempt charity status, which I would love to see that happen to all of these, organized religions, because they're taking advantage of it.
Yep.
They're taking advantage of it. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and we hope you have a good rest of the week.
Bye.
Bye.